Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah.
A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak. And now for today, I'd just like to go in and talk about some more subjects here that I have going on at the moment. So, here on HGN, let's get started with a really big topic here. And I mean really big. I'm going to be talking about history. Yeah. It's about time I pretty much got to this one itself, which was actually a combination of both requests from various people out there, of viewers and otherwise. And this was also an idea that I've been pretty much saving up for some other time, but you know what? It's pretty much coming down to me with an overwhelming statement. I might as well get this one over with ASAP. So right now, let's just get talking about history, shall we? And this is quite a big one that I might as well talk a little bit about. Because if you want to talk about history, you might as well start at the very beginning. The universe was, in fact, established billions of years ago. Billions and billions. A ginormous explosion ended up creating an entire universe itself. Atomic particle collisions of all sorts. Many different atomic levels that pretty much brought together the different things around here, including the everlasting darkness that is the cosmos itself, combined with trillions upon quadrillions of stars, lots of planets, different galaxies and solar systems that are all set upon together as one universe would pretty much put it all together. But of course, going to our certain galaxy, the Milky Way, I can certainly gauge for the fact that every single planet that we have here, the 8 that are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Earth, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, not to mention the dwarf planet, which was also considered an actual planet, Pluto, and its 2 moons. But not to mention the moons of all the other planets, including our own, known as Luna, for the most part. Then there's the Sun, a gigantic ball of gas, and highly extreme temperatures of all sorts. But going back to everything that we could ever possibly imagine, history, of course, was a pretty big thing for what it was. The Earth had been made millions of years ago. It was just a gigantic ball of fire, but eventually cooled down, and a giant part of it had ripped off from it and became Luna, the moon itself. Then, of course, we got ourselves the many different things of life that have put together. Billions of years ago, we had ourselves the Earth itself with unicellular organisms. As time passed by, though, we got fish, and eventually crawled up onto land, became the dinosaurs. But after millions and millions of years have also passed, then on, the KT event pretty much took place and caused an extreme amount of extinction, with more than 75% of all life being wiped out. With the other 25%, including some mammals, primates, and others like birds, they were able to survive tens of millions of years later on. Eventually, the primates themselves evolved into the hominid, which of course became the precursor towards today's humanity. But through many stages, including the Australopithecus, Africanus, the Neanderthal, and then eventually the Homo sapien, which would eventually lead to our own upbringing, the human being specifically reigns as the high supreme being of planet Earth itself. But we have yet to determine if we are in fact going to get another supreme being of some sorts that's going to dominate the planet. Compared to many other levels of different species of animals that we've ever had in the animal kingdom, the human being is by far one of the highest in terms of its intelligence level, and of course the versatility and articulation based on the dozens of different joints that the body has, hundreds of bones, lots of teeth in comparison, and of course with lots of other abilities that are sometimes trumped by other animals themselves, but of course with all these other factors that have been put into play, the human body itself is one of the most intricate and one of the most sophisticated type ever to be known in history. With the many organs that encompass the human body, including the giant layer of skin, that is of course covered in hair sometimes, going down to the muscular levels and tissues, and then the bone, the circulation system, then of course you have the excretory system, digestive tract, the many other vital organs, including the lungs, stomach, bladder, mind itself, and dozens of other things that also surround the many things about human anatomy. There's really a lot that I could probably talk about that in general, but let's just get going with what history has had. Ever since the human being was first placed down on Earth, all thanks to our earliest of ancestors in the primate family, we simply had ourselves high levels of evolution take place. And that's only because, as many years pass by, we eventually come across a new level of our own species take place. And there have been a lot of examples of human beings that were able to really achieve a lot more in life itself compared to many. If you're not familiar with high IQ people, including James Sildes, Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, and many others around there, they are in fact some of the highest in terms of intelligence, and of course there's many others that relate to brute strength. There is of course the one particular one in England who is able to carry thousands of pounds, but in terms of body weight, the one and only happened to weigh 410 pounds, and yet still pack an enormous amount of muscular tissue all into one. And then of course there are the people that happen to really high rank in terms of speed. There was of course one example who happens to run on a treadmill at more than 23 miles per hour, which is way faster than average. And of course there's dozens of other factors that could possibly be put together in terms of, well, human abilities that can happen to be a whole lot better than others. Guinness Book of World Records happens to show that anybody can really break a record of any sorts, but it's all up to whoever's got the talent for it, whoever's got the strength to pull it off, and whoever's got the speed to be able to get away with the award for any of the sorts. Throughout the many time periods that we've all been through, this entire period in history known as the Cenozoic era, especially of course since the human being first arrived on Earth itself, all thanks to our ancestors, we have been really able to do a whole lot. Compared to many other animals and the like in the animal kingdom itself, we were able to build houses, create machinery that can really be of dominance someday if we were ever to become extinct. And of course we were also able to have ourselves a lot of different natural disasters that sometimes we were responsible for, but not to mention the types of weapons that we use in terms of fighting battles and wars against others of our own species in general. It just goes to show that a human being is capable of so much compared to many others in general. But throughout the many time periods that we've ever been through, in the last several thousand years if you will, we've really been able to pull off a whole lot of advancements and so much more. But the thing is, how can the next 1,000 years go? How can the next millennium ever turn out for us? Will we ever get something of any sorts that are even better in terms of it? The human mind is certainly capable of proposing different concepts and different ideas of all sorts. We are in fact highly creative individuals as well. So that just goes to show another big point about human beings is that our brains are so advanced. They are in fact one of the most complicated pieces of machinery ever to be devised by nature itself. But I will say for sure that aside from all that, every kind of merit that I could ever possibly put together towards describing this thing in general, history is certainly not over, because we're at the present now, which of course will eventually turn into the future. And when the future comes, we're going to have a lot of other things that we're probably going to be talking about within hundreds of years, thousands of years, tens of thousands, millions, billions, trillions. Who knows what we could possibly ever find out. So, that's pretty much all that I got to talk about history in general. I'm just so excited that everything I've ever talked about practically came down to this point. Something where I'm really able to talk about and I'm really able to gauge different categories and put them all into one. So that's pretty much it that I got here to talk about here on HGN. But if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.